And welcome back to a fresh episode of Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Sam Dunning, co-owner over at webchoiceuk.com. And today we've got a spicy episode for you. I'm joined by Nicolas Vandenberghe. Nicolas has successfully started and sold over 3 tech companies with up to 65 employees, generating over 11 million in revenue each. He's the CEO and co-founder of the company you've probably heard of, Chili Piper. Nicolas, well, welcome to the show, sir. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. Really looking forward to this one. So we're jumping in with a topic. We're talking about why marketing automation is dead and why people-powered marketing is well and alive. So first and foremost, as I like to do with most of my guests, Nicolas, let's chuck you in at the deep end. Why is marketing automation dead? I'm sure a lot of marketers are going to be tuning in and thinking he's talking nonsense. What is marketing automation? Why is it dying or dead?
Yeah. I have to be careful there because we do partner with marketing automation solutions with, like Marketo and Adobe. So I don't want to offend anybody, but what I mean to say that the premise of marketing automation was really about email. Marketo, Eloqua, this generation of software.
Right.
The imperative in their world was to capture an email address and then send email to that person, right? And you had all sorts of sophisticated way to segment your base to send different emails at different times. But it was basically founded on the idea that email was a great way to educate people. They call it nurturing, and the way to make it a customer. And the obvious thing is that we all have an inbox full of emails that we never read, and typically these nurturing emails are in this category, right? So this kind of email nurturing no longer works. There are many other ways for prospects to find information these days, and certainly receiving emails from a vendor is not one of them. So that's very foundation of a marketing automation is no longer working. What people do, like you and me, if you need to procure a new product or buy something new, what you're going to do is go online and ask your friends, right? Ask your networks. These are the two things. You Google it and you ask your friends. So this is the new world. By friends in a broad term, you may not go to your childhood friend when you need something very sophisticated for your business. You're going to go to a network where you expect these people. But there are so many communities now, so many Slack channels, so many social networks that you're going to find information in a much better and more reliable way. And that's where you're going to look for this information. So this company called Sixth Sense labeled that the dark funnel. And as I like to say, there's actually nothing dark about it because it's very enjoyable to ask people who are knowledgeable some recommendations. But from the vendor standpoint, it's dark because you do not play in this. At least at first shot, you do not play. They're asking around, and so you don't control how people find the information.
Yeah, we'll get into Chris Walker's favorite funnel shortly. But before we do, let's talk a bit more about kind of traditional marketing automation. So a lot of companies, especially kind of larger scale B2B companies, this might even be their bread and butter, traditional methods like giving out guides, white papers, tracking their website clicks, tracking user activity, account-based marketing, looking at databases, getting the top of funnel leads where people have shown some kind of interest, whether that is a marketing guide, video, they've clicked on a part of your website. We then track them. We find out where their email is. We send them a sequence of emails over time saying, hey, I've seen you download this guide. Email 2. Hey, how are you getting on with the guide? Here's some free tips and resources. Email 3. Hey, book a demo. Probably not quite that fast, but that's the general gist of it. I know a heck of a lot of companies still do that. Why is that becoming less effective, Nicolas? Is it because people are just bored of it? They know what the process is. They know that if they're getting a guide, this email sequence is going to follow and bore them to tears, or is it something else?
Yeah, the world has changed completely. Things move a lot faster. There are multiple things at stake. I mentioned one of them, that people are going to look for information among the networks, no longer from the vendor. The second piece is that people are not going to read the email. It's going to end up in your spam folder. And the third piece is that people make decisions much faster. So I'm going to give you an example. A a couple of weeks ago, we finally found a great candidate to set up our analytics at Chili Pepper. For a long time, we didn't operate with analytics. So the person comes on board, is a wonderful person. And he said, okay, now I need to deploy a stack for analytics. So there's like 6 procurement decisions that need to be made in 2 weeks, right? And what is a great way to do at Chili Pepper, we have this concept called decision memo, where we actually write a Google Doc on to make decisions. I'll talk about that later. So we have 6 decision memos on products we're going to buy, and as CEO, I review them and execute them, right? So we've made 6 procurement decisions. Now, tell me, if one of these vendors had captured my email address and sent me an email next week on saying, hey, do you like my white paper? I said, well, sorry, I already bought the solution. You know, things go a lot faster. We buy a lot, many more products. If you look at your iPhone on the consumer world, the number of apps is astonishing, right? When you look at pages after pages of apps, and the same thing is true in the business world. There are many more solutions for very specific problems, and as a result, we have to, because there's so many different solutions to procure, we have to make these decisions faster. And this idea that we're going to be nurtured by some vendor is completely antiquated. It's a thing of the past. I would even argue that. So I was reading rereading what used to be the Bible of marketing, which was the inbound marketing by the founders of HubSpot. They published that about a decade ago, and at the time it seems so forward thinking, and it was all about non-disruptive marketing. So you would not send email, or actually not call people. You'd produce content, and people would come to you, read your content, and then you'd grab their email. But even content has lost its effectiveness. Now we still do content at Chili Pepper because it's an important piece, but it's definitely a much smaller piece than it was 10 years ago. For that same reason, people, I mean, they may read your thing, but in most cases, they're in a hurry. They're going to make a decision fast. And the number one thing they're going to do is go to their network and ask around and maybe read reviews and rely on other people basically to make that decision. That's why we call it people-powered marketing, because the information that used to come from a vendor is now spread around multiple types of people, whether it's what they've written on reviews, on the network, on the Slack channel, and that's where you're going to get that information to make your decision.
Yeah, so let's, I guess, break this down on a bit more of a granular level, Nicolas. So let's say perhaps a company's listening in and they think, well, we're doing these nurture campaigns. They're working just fine. We get the odd sales lead, and our sales team have to do a lot of cold calling. They might be struggling a bit, but we're happy with what things are going. But since you've perked my ears, Nicolas, what can we do? What can we do? What can companies listening in or watching in do to get started on people power marketing? What are some of the things that they perhaps need to consider before and to get stuck into it?
Yeah, so we're in the process of doing that at Chili Pepper, actually, because I think even though arguably what I'm saying is obvious, that people have to make more decisions and they rely on their networks, the implications are not so obvious, because the implication that you now need to influence all these people who are going to talk to these prospects. And so you need to be much more focused on communities, much more focused on influencers. We have this concept of the Bullseye Strategy, where we identify who are the most influential people in our space and reach out to them to make sure that they're aware of our existence. So we actually work with a list of people. So we have a list of influencers, the list of partners who can influence. We have our own customer advisory board, again, that we rely upon to be influencers. So we're now focusing much more on these lists of people and spending much more time building relationship with these influencers. We also spend more time on reviews. So for the longest time, we neglected reviews. I must say it was one of my mistakes. was focused on building a great product. I didn't focus so much on asking people to write about it. It turned out
Yep.
that it's obviously very important. So you're switching all your focus on reaching out to different circles of people and making sure they're aware of your existence. We also building our team around customer marketing. So when you have a happy customer, then you want to take advantage of it. So
Okay.
have them send you referrals, have them write reviews, have them maybe speak at an event. So do a lot more investment on your base, and have that base become the advocate for your product. I guess advocacy would be a good way to summarize how to think about it. This is no longer about sending out a message. It's about asking other people to give the message. So become your advocates.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. So, in kind of talking about perhaps why this works and how it works. So, a lot of this isn't necessarily measurable in terms of kind of when you mentioned kind of customers could potentially be on Slack channels, they could be in groups, they could be in review sites and these kind of things. Why does this work? Because this is, of course, vastly different to the old approach of kind of finding potential buyers and then nurturing them over time. Why do you think it is, Nicolas, that this approach of kind of people-powered marketing, hunting for prospects in different groups, Slack communities, influencer channels, etc., why is this strategy so much better?
Just because it matches the new world and how people make their decisions, right? So I mean, the number one thing in marketing is understand how people make decisions and try to influence that process. And
Yep.
given that people, are now asking around and relying on other people, then that's where, as a marketer, that's where you have to be. There's one thing that you mentioned. It's a bit scary because you have a very hard time tracking it. So it's very hard to do attribution. If I look at our business at Chili Pepper, so much of it we go into the bucket of direct. We call it direct. People came directly always, either direct,
Yep.
or they search on our name, meaning that they already wanted to come to our site. And so you get this vast majority of a business inbound is this direct thing, which means that people came to us, but obviously they must have heard about us, right? So it's not like one day they say that they got an illumination that Chili Pepper exists. So it's hard to track. In the old days, it was much easier, to see if content was working, because you were able to see that the person come from a content piece, of course, from a search piece. Now they come direct, and you wonder how they got there. So what we've done at Chili Pepper is that we now made it part of our sales process, that we ask them afterwards how they heard about us and try to track it back to the post closing attribution, or at least post demo attribution. But the fact that it's harder because it's not attributable doesn't mean that that it's less effective. It works the same way. It's just less controllable. But one of the key component of this new world is that when they come to your website, they are much more educated than they used to be. So the new imperative is what we call straight to meeting. Now they're on your website, you want to go straight to meeting. You do not want to capture an email address and chase them, because then you've lost the battle, right? By the time you send them the nurturing email, they've already bought the competitor. You want to go straight to meeting. So that's what we've built at Chili Pepper. Our solution Concierge is integrate with form. And so when the prospects submit a forms, instead of getting a page that say, thank you, somebody's going to call you, and then wonder who's going to call me, you get immediately upon form submission a bunch of time slots. You pick a time, in one click you've booked the time, and you have a meeting, sign up with a salesperson. And that's completely critical. We see our companies, our customers going from 40% conversion rate, meaning from 100 people filling a form, they used to have only 40 of them getting a meeting going to pipeline, to 80%. So now they booked immediately, they go to pipeline. So you get twice as much pipeline by automating that process of going from form to meeting with our solution. And that's why we think, I think that's why we're seeing so much growth at Chili Pepper, is because companies realize that they can't afford anymore to have this process that takes time, where they capture an email from a form, somebody follows up with an email, an SDR call the next day. That's just gone. You have to go fast. You have to go provide a much better experience to the prospect, and that means that the prospect has to be able to book a meeting instantly.
Sure. It makes sense. And I know guys like Chris Walker over at Refine Labs talks about the dark social a lot. And for anyone that's not heard of it, I guess in a poorly formed snapshot, from my understanding of it, quite a lot of it involves kind of getting social ads, organic social, so understanding where your buyers hang out. So getting in front of them with perhaps targeted social, Facebook, Insta ads, educating them around your service, your content, filling in the gaps, solving their problems. So when you do eventually need their help, their solution comes to mind, and then they'll probably go direct to you, either message you on LinkedIn or go straight to your website, or likewise putting out organic content on LinkedIn, educating your prospects, filling in the gaps, solving their pain points, being a useful resource, a trusted advisor. So when the time comes they actually need your product or service, you reach out to them directly, like I say, in the DMs or straight to website. Issue is a lot of it's not
Attributable.
nailable, attributable, or trackable.
That's right, yeah.
So what would be your response to that, Nicolas? So if someone's thinking, well, this all sounds well and good, but I'm not going to be able to track any of it.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the issue, is that it's not attributable. You educate and educate and educate, and then when they come to you, you don't know why. So as I mentioned, what we do, that we've made it part of our sales process to always ask how they heard about us and how they came, so that you have some kind of tracking. It's not as perfect as it would be from a UTM parameter, or searching, getting the result from advertising, but it's still a good proxy. You can see if things are working or things are not working. And trust me, one of the fascinating things is that we looked over time at the number of visits that our prospect do on our website before they book a demo, right? So, and when we started, it was around 7. So they'd come 7 times, and then they book demo. Now it's slightly north of 2. So they come first, they come back, boom, they book. And it's not because our website is better that they get it. It's because now we've educated in the dark social and the dark funnel, and by the time they come, they're better educated, because of course we're much bigger, so we have the means to be present in all these other channels and be there. But that's one way to track it, right? You can tell if your prospect go from 7 visits to demos to 2 visits to demos, then you know that you're doing something right. Same thing with the conversion rate on visitors to a demo request. If you see that the conversion rate is going up, you can see that which is correlated to the metric I've just mentioned. You can tell that you've done something right about educating them before they come to your website. So there are some metrics, it's just not the same metrics, and they're not as direct, but they're nonetheless significant.
And the route to conversion is a funny one, right? So, for example, just like you guys, well, maybe a little bit similar on our website recently, because we run a lot of different marketing campaigns. I post a lot of content on LinkedIn. We're running various ads to get people to our site to then convert them into sales ops. We added the field, how did you hear about us? So someone might put, they found us on Google, they found us for a paid listing, they listened to my podcast. And then sometimes someone will put one option. I'll always ask them on the call. I'll always say, if I get on a call with a sales lead, I'll say, look, how did you stumble upon us? And then he might say something completely different to what they've put on the form. Like they might say, look, I followed you on the podcast for a while. Then I looked at LinkedIn. Then I went onto your website and looked at some articles. Then a few months later, I decided to inquire because I needed your help. So it's always kind of worth asking the question, because the route is quite often like they've educated themselves for so long, then they've decided to get in touch.
Yeah, you have to asking in the form, I think, is not reliable, because when you fill a form, you just want to be done with it. You've decided, you know what I mean? You decided you want to engage with the company. You don't want to spend more time fucking around. You just want to say, get me the meeting. But once you're talking, like then you have time. You say, "Oh, let me think about it, how I came across," and you can even be more thoughtful about it. Say, like, I saw an ad, but I heard about you before, or my friend is using you. That's what we get a lot when we ask. Say, um, uh, it's mostly somebody I know is using you, or I booked a demo with some of your customers and I like the experience. So it's much more reliable
Sure.
than a phone.
Okay. So, for anyone that's perhaps kind of tuning in and thinking, I know you shared some examples of some of the channels you use when it comes to people powered marketing and dark social. Is there any kind of baseline channels? Let's say someone tuning in as a B2B company, perhaps they have a monthly service they offer. Are there any kind of baseline channels that if they're not doing yet that they should get into that can
Well,
start
I mean,
this process for them?
yes, the number one channel these days for B2B is LinkedIn, of course, right? So because LinkedIn, it's funny because I remember the days where LinkedIn had no content whatsoever. It was just a network with connecting things. And then when I started doing content, I thought, what are they doing? This is crazy. They think of themselves as a media company. It makes no sense. And how wrong was I, right? Because now it's like we go on LinkedIn. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff on LinkedIn. It's like, you start to, that's how I do it. I start my morning when I wake up, check Facebook, and then I get to work, I check LinkedIn. And all my news, my information is now on LinkedIn. So obviously that has become the number one channel for B2B. It's a place where people influence one another, and that's where you want to be. And um, any B2B companies has to have a strong presence on LinkedIn for sure.
Gotcha. And on that note, is people powered marketing is what we've been talking about the only way? So should we ditch all our nurturing campaigns? Should we perhaps focus less on, let's say, bottom of the funnel stuff if we're running kind of Google ads and things like that, sponsored ads, or should we focus purely on kind of influencing people, speeding up our sales cycle, or is it part of let's say, a more holistic approach? So just one more tool to add to the armory.
Well, the good thing with the old ways of doing things is that it was very measurable, right? If you nurture, we can tell how many of our opportunities come from an email that we've sent from a nurturing campaign. We can tell how much comes from an ad spend. So no harm in continuing, but the great news is that you can see if it's working or not. And I can tell you, at Chili Pepper, we do all of it. Nurturing, we don't do much anymore because we found it was close to useless. Of course, we still do ads, and they work. It's just not the bulk of our revenues. It's just a piece. So if things are continuing to work, then you want to continue doing them. Just don't expect them to build your business, because they'll at best they'll be a small piece of your contributions.
Yeah, makes sense. And any final notes on that, Nicolas, just before we wrap up, in terms of anyone that wants to get stuck into people powered marketing?
And so you're asking me final notes?
Yeah, any final notes for anyone that wants to get stuck into the processes we've talked about today?
Yes, I mean the two components it's ironic because it's gone into one component that's very hard to track, this dark funnel piece where you're trying to influence, you're trying to talk to people. But then the other piece is conversion, right? So when they come to your website, you want to conversion, and that one is very controllable. That one, you get somebody on your website, you make your form very short, ideally one field with things like Clearbit and Apollo and ZoomInfo. You can just do data augmentation, so you don't need to ask people the size of the company and all that. You get it from the email address, so you can just have a very simple form and then go straight to meeting and convert. So the conversion piece is completely under your control. So let's be sure that you spend as much energy in educating the dark funnel as you do into converting those who finally come to your website and are interested.
I like it. Speed to lead, indeed, sir. Good note to end on.
That's right.
Good
Well,
stuff.
actually, we for the longest time at Chili Pepper, we talked about speed to lead, and finally, recently, I said, speed to lead is dead. It's because it's zero. It should be instant, right? The speed to lead should be instant. The lead comes, fill a form, you book a meeting in real time. So something that's zero is non-existent. I don't know. It should be called instant to lead instead of speed to lead. So that's our
Instant
new
deal.
yeah, instant. Yeah. That's
Good man.
our new campaign. Yeah.
Nice one, Nicolas. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on. Enjoyed the chat. So thanks
My
for
pleasure. Yeah, same
sharing
here.
your wisdom. If you enjoyed today's episode, all the show notes will be over on businessgrowth.marketing. Nicolas, do tell us more about how people can learn from you, how they can connect with you, and anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, of course, they should come to our website, Chili Piper, and experience our instant to lead. Right, so we have a own product, of course, on our website. So if you come, you'll book a demo in just a few seconds, and we'll be able to talk to our team, and we'll be delighted to have you. It's Chili Piper. Some people still to this day call us Chili Pepper, but we're not selling vegetables. It's a play on the word, so Piper, Chili Piper.
Chili Piper, indeed. We'll put those links at businessgrowth.marketing. Nicolas, thank you once again. And as always, if you enjoyed today's episode, do hit that subscribe button. We interview business leaders every week, and we share actionable marketing tips to grow your business and to grow your revenue. And with that, we should catch you on the next one.